Welcome back to 504 Road Trips. In today's video, we continue north on US 1 beginning at Florida Mile 274.3. We leave the River Park area behind and roll into unincorporated St. Lucie County, still on a busy multi-lane surface highway, but it quickly takes on a more rural feel with patches of woods, open lots, and older businesses set well back from the roadway. The grassy median is dotted with palms and pine trees as we continue north toward Fort Pierce. St. Lucie County has grown rapidly in recent years, with about 374,000 residents according to the 2023 American Community Survey, and a median household income in the mid-60,000s, with median home values in the upper 300,000s. St. Lucie's name dates back to 16th century Spanish explorers and a short-lived settlement near the St. Lucie Inlet, and today the county promotes itself as part of Florida's Treasure Coast, known for quiet Atlantic beaches and the Indian River. As we continue north, US 1 becomes the dividing line between two unincorporated communities, with White City on our left and Indian River Estates to our right. White City has roughly 5,400 residents as of 2023, and it traces its name and street plan back to the Great White City, built for the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. That fairground was a showcase of gleaming white neoclassical buildings and early electric lighting that helped inspire the City Beautiful movement, and the community here echoed it by naming its main road Midway Road after the fair's Midway Plaisance. Behind the trees and side streets to our west, you would find early 1900s houses, newer infill homes, and White City Park along 10 Mile Creek, a shaded spot where locals fish, picnic, and launch kayaks. On the east side of the highway, Indian River Estates has a little over 7,000 residents, largely in single-family homes on generous lots. That neighborhood stretches toward the Indian River Lagoon and the Savannah's Preserve State Park, so a short drive off to the right from US 1 brings you to trailheads, quiet lakes, and boardwalks through one of the last remaining freshwater savannas on Florida's east coast. At Midway Road, County Road 712, we cross into the city of Fort Pierce. From here to the end of the video, almost everything we see along US 1 is part of this historic waterfront city. Fort Pierce has about 48,000 residents based on recent census estimates, with a median household income in the mid-40,000s and a more modest median home value than much of coastal Florida, which makes it attractive for retirees and working families who want to stay near the water without South Florida prices. The city began as a U.S. Army outpost in 1838 during the Second Seminole War, named Fort Pierce for Colonel Benjamin Kendrick Pierce, brother of future President Franklin Pierce, and the original fort site sits a short distance east of here along the Indian River at Old Fort Park. Over time, the settlement grew into a small port and railroad town shipping citrus and winter vegetables, then later a Navy training hub during World War II, which is why the National Navy UDT SEAL Museum now stands on the nearby Atlantic shore. Today, as we follow US 1 north past small motels, older storefronts, and side streets leading toward downtown, Fort Pierce markets itself as the Sunrise City, with a restored historic core around the Sunrise Theater, a popular Saturday farmers market along the waterfront, and recurring events like Friday Fest and the Navy SEAL Museum's Muster and Music Festival, drawing visitors to the marina and riverfront parks. Lodging and dining are easy to find both along US 1 and closer to the water, making this a convenient overnight stop on a trip up or down the East Coast. few minutes later, we reach the eastern terminus of State Road 70, which meets US 1 just to our left as a major east to west corridor through the center of the state. From this intersection, State Road 70 heads west, becoming Okeechobee Road, quickly meeting both I-95 and Florida's Turnpike, then continuing across cattle country and farmland through Okeechobee and Arcadia before ultimately reaching the Bradenton area on the Gulf Coast. Within about 50 miles west of here, State Road 70 gives access to airboat tours on Lake Okeechobee, rural rodeos, and old Florida main streets that feel a world away from the coastal strip we're driving now. On our route, US 1 keeps pushing north as an urban arterial, with downtown Fort Pierce a few blocks to the east behind the buildings we see along the roadside. A little further along, we cross the eastern terminus of State Road 68 at Orange Avenue, with Fort Pierce City Hall on the right as we pass through the intersection. State Road 68 runs west from here, first as a city street climbing away from the riverfront, then as a straight two-lane highway threading through pastures and citrus groves on its way toward I-95 in the rural communities of western St. Lucie County. It serves as one of Fort Pierce's main links between downtown and the agricultural interior. So from this one intersection, you can either follow US 1 toward beaches and resort towns, or turn onto Orange Avenue and be in wide open ranch country in less than an hour. Soon afterwards, State Road A1A joins US 1 for a short concurrency. A1A arrives here after running up the Barrier Islands from the south, linking the quiet beaches and parks on Hutchinson Island with places like Vero Beach and Sebastian Inlet farther north along the coast. For this stretch, A1A leaves the shoreline and follows US 1 through the built-up part of Fort Pierce, sharing the same traffic lights, turn lanes, and mix of older motels, local restaurants, and roadside businesses. Within about 50 miles in either direction, A1A offers some of the best scenic coastal driving in Florida, with oceanfront state parks, turtle nesting beaches, and small beach towns that feel far calmer than the big metros to the south. As we continue north, Old Dixie Highway splits off to the right, but you can see that it's barricaded here at US 1 because the Dixie Highway Bridge over Taylor Creek up the road is closed. The small bridge over the creek has been closed to traffic for several years after engineers found structural problems following Hurricane Irma in 2017. The aging two-lane bridge, built in the early 1960s, was no longer considered safe for vehicles, and St. Lucie County has plans to rebuild it as a one-lane span with an attached trail that would carry part of the East Coast Greenway. Until that project moves forward, all through traffic has to stay on US 1 to cross Taylor Creek, which is why there is a barricade and detour sign at the Old Dixie Highway turnoff, even though the roadway on either side is still in use. The concurrency with A1A soon ends as the coastal highway turns east again toward the next barrier island. A1A follows the causeway out across the Intracoastal Waterway to North Hutchinson Island, giving access to Jetty Park at the Fort Pierce Inlet, the National Navy UDT SEAL Museum, and a string of oceanfront parks and preserves that stretch north toward the Indian River County line. From our vantage point in US 1, we mainly see the approach ramps, overhead signs, and glimpses of the river beyond nearby buildings, but just a short drive along that causeway takes you from this urban corridor to dune-backed beaches and quiet two-lane coastal scenery. We conclude today's video at mile 284 as we leave the city limits of Fort Pierce. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment below, share and follow us on social media, and join us for our next 504 road trip.